why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are and what you do.
Oh, so we're starting right now. Okay.
Well, okay, here, we'll do it like this. Welcome to Application, the TYPO3 Community Podcast. And this is where we have conversations with people from in and around TYPO3 to find out who builds this thing, who benefits from this thing, what we all do with it, the kind of difference that we can make in the world with an open source software project. And with me today is Sybille Peters from somewhere north of me in Germany. Welcome to Application, the TYPO3 Community Podcast.
Hi, I'm Sybille Peters, and this is Application, the TYPO3 Community Podcast, where we share your stories, your projects, and the differences you make.
1, 2. Welcome to Application, the TYPO3 Community Podcast. I'm Jeffrey A. McGuire. You can call me Jam. And this is where we celebrate the TYPO3 community, sharing your stories, talking about your projects and the difference you make in, around, and with TYPO3 CMS. Dun, 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 dun. Hey, hello. Thank you for tuning in to Application, the TYPO3 Community Podcast, where we share your stories, your projects, and the difference you make. I have some great examples of that. My guest today is Sybille Peters, who works on the TYPO3 installation at the University of Oldenburg. We talk about a lot of the technical and usability things that go into that. We talk about the interesting chicken and egg problem around creating new code or refactoring old code. We talk a lot about community and contribution, and Sybille has done a lot of contributing, and I got a really warm, fuzzy feeling hearing about some of her experiences. I hope you do too, and I hope you enjoy listening to this episode as much as I did speaking with Sybille today. Sybille, where are you located?
I live and work in Oldenburg.
In Oldenburg, at the university, right?
That's correct, yes.
What do you do there?
Yeah, I do, well, of course, TYPO3. I work on our web page, web installation, and I do some extension development and also take care of updating, because it's always a challenge to upgrade to the next TYPO3 version.
Right.
That's what I do.
And Ben, by the time you've covered all that, that sounds like a pretty full day.
Yeah, and there's some other things. I mean, I'm not going to mention all these details, but it is a full day, yes.
So you're responsible for the web presence at the University of Oldenburg, basically?
Yes.
I suppose I want to know how you discovered TYPO3.
Yeah, it's not so much that I discovered it. I applied for a job. It was at the same place where I was already working. I was working at the University in Hanover in a search engine project, and that was had a limited time because it was a research project and they're often limited. And so I was looking for a new job at the same institution, and they were looking for someone in the TYPO3 team. And I said, okay. I didn't know TYPO3 at all. So that was new. And
how long ago was that?
I don't remember. It's quite some years ago.
What version of TYPO3 did you run into when you changed it?
I think that was 4.5.
Okay, so you've been doing TYPO3 for a while now.
Yes.
Yeah. What was your experience and qualifications going into that job since you hadn't done TYPO3 before?
Well, I had done programming before, but I hadn't actually, everything was new because I hadn't really done PHP. I hadn't done any web development. I don't really like working with CSS. I made several attempts to do that, and it's always really frustrating. I like working on things where you can see the result. So I like doing web development in general. So I think that was a good choice, but at the beginning it wasn't really easy to get started.
What was your experience before that?
Well, it's completely different. When I started working, I think I was doing C programming. For a while, I worked at a company which sold a Canadian real-time operating system. So all that was very low level. It was completely different from what I'm doing now. And when I studied at the university, we were doing mostly Java development.
Mm-hmm.
So it's also, I mean, it has a lot of things are similar, but it's quite a different world.
Sure. So I can imagine that moving to PHP, it's incredibly refreshing that you don't have to compile anything, right? You type it and run it.
Yeah, no, actually, I like that because if you compile, I mean, it spits out every error you make, so it doesn't just, in PHP you can have really bad errors, but you don't notice them until runtime. I mean, all that has changed a little bit because you have more static analyzers and you can do more checking.
Right.
But from the language point of view, I actually like the compiler.
Oh, okay. But that's a really good reason. Debugging it has a completely different conceptual hierarchy in a compiler-based system. On the other hand, I like what you said. Talk about the web work from the perspective of you do something and you get a result and you see something.
It's generally, for example, I like our website. I don't really do that much of the front-end stuff. I do that very little. So other people are doing that, and I think they're doing a good job. But I like when I do some programming and do some testing, I can look at the results and also consider things like usability. And so I like doing that.
So what's the intersection between usability and the sort of programming you do? If you're not really, you really don't want to be touching the front end, how do you think about creating a good user experience when you're working on the back end stuff?
Yeah, of course, what I would like to do, I'm not really there yet, but I would like the editors to have a good editing experience. So it's really important to make it very well usable in the back end. There are still some things to be accomplished, and I'm not really quite happy yet with everything, but it's all a work in progress.
So you do quite a lot of contribution for TYPO3, and I'd like to ask you, what have you contributed? What are you working on?
Also has a long history, or actually not quite so long history, because I've been doing that quite as long as I've been doing TYPO3. I found that it was very motivating for me. So I don't really know if what I'm doing is so useful. I hope some of it is useful, but actually it's more useful for me because I learn stuff. I get in contact with people. I get feedback on my reviews, and so for me it's really useful. And what I'm doing the last 2 years, I've been doing a lot of documentation. When I started to contribute, I just fixed a link validator patch because a link validator is a system extension.
So I have several follow-up questions now. It's awesome that you noticed something that needed improvement and you jumped in, and that's exactly the sort of inspiring, correct example that people should take from open source. Like, if you see it and you know anything about it, there's a chance that you could be the person that cares the most, and you can go help everybody by fixing it. So thank you. That's fantastic. Tell us what link validator is and what it does.
It's a core extension, so it's only backend. It detects the links on your site and tries to check them and find out which ones are broken. So the target does not exist, and you get a not found, page not found usually, or something.
Right. And that's super, super useful, because I remember in the olden days going through my site and like running tools against it and getting reports and like getting links colored red and green and whatever, and having to load every page. Now I know this is super olden internet days, but I find it super helpful that TYPO3 does that. I loved what you said a few minutes ago about contribution, and that you find it really inspiring and exciting to contribute to TYPO3. Can you talk about that?
What I find inspiring, it has a lot of aspects. I can remember at the beginning it was very good because it was all great and motivating. And after a while, I had some the things that were frustrating. They came too, and they increased. So it's kind of an up and down process. But I remember at the beginning, it was all positive for me. And what was, for example, very motivating, well, of course, doing your first core patch and actually getting it merged that is just really great.
Right.
Because, I mean, it's not so easy. I mean, if you make small changes, there are actually a lot of possibilities to get started and make really small changes there. But if you do something, actually, my first patch was really small. So, but anyhow, I was really glad that it got merged, and I got so much feedback and help. Sometimes people just contacted me on Slack to say thank you.
What a nice community.
Actually, that has decreased. I don't get that anymore. So I'm always wondering, am I doing something wrong now, or is it just? I think after a while they just they know you're already kind of a part of it, and then they don't do that as much.
Okay, so general announcement to the TYPO3 community: if you're listening, no matter how long we've been helping out, everyone still likes to get a compliment or a thank you for what they're doing. Do you remember you were working on that patch and you'd been doing TYPO3 for however long it was, and then you got that patch accepted? Did you feel different about TYPO3 from then on? Was there like a different emotion maybe?
Yes, I don't know if it was just one event. For me, I think it was attending the camps and contributing and getting help, because also I had people who helped me and asked questions on Slack, and I got help with some things. And for some of the patches, also other people jumped in and helped. So that was really great interaction. I remember I made a suggestion in the Slack channel, shouldn't we do this and this? And then somebody said, yes, but wouldn't it be better to do that and that? And then I said, oh, yeah, that sounds good. I'm willing to do that. And I started to write a patch. And then it proved more difficult than I thought. And then somebody else came and helped and added another patch set. And then it was finally finished and got merged. And collaboration of the people and helping was really great.
I think it can be such a powerful force for good in the world, right? You made some software better that thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people interact with all the time, and you got to know and help and be helped by a bunch of other smart people, and you have virtual colleagues everywhere. Plus, you know that every day code that you wrote is being downloaded and installed and used all over the place, right? It's like a tiny little bit of it is yours too.
I actually don't think about that much. It's a little scary.
What is the favorite contribution you ever made to TYPO3?
I think that is the one I just talked about, which was the Git commit hook for contribution, because it used to be somewhere external in file admin, and then it was integrated into the core. And now everyone is using it, who's contributing.
That's a big deal, right?
I didn't actually write this from scratch. It was already there. just integrated it, and then there was also some other scripts involved, which I changed.
What's a cool TYPO3 trick that you could share with people?
There's some things in TYPO3 not so many people know about. I think that the mass editing mode is pretty cool. I think the multi-language handling is really cool. There's some. I'm pretty sure there's still things I don't even know about, because I still run into this from time to time.
Talk about what is the mass editing function?
If you're in the list module, you can edit several records at once. So I always find this a little tedious in the page module, because you have to edit each content element individually, and there you can make changes. It's more efficient. I didn't really know this well, because I don't do a lot of editing. I don't have that much contact with the editors, but I'm starting to. I learned more about these kind of things, or rediscovered them when I started working on the documentation. So that was also very useful.
I'm a little bit scared of that kind of functionality. The mass editing, of course, it can be helpful, because if you have referred to super cool thing incorporated in 55 blog posts, and then that company changes its name to Purple Green incorporated, and you need to keep all that up to date. Of course, it's a total pain to go in and deal with that page by page by page by page. But I get really scared about changing all of those things at once. And in another content management system that I have worked with extensively, also open source, also PHP, also wonderful, we had a novelty module that would change the language on your website for Talk Like a Pirate Day. And it would change certain key phrases into quote unquote pirate language, except the way it was written early on, it would also change your URLs. The URL aliases of your pages, which, of course, the stupid thing was only to be stupid anyway. But it,
so it was more like a joke or something.
Yeah, it was like a novelty. The idea of changing things in bulk without checking is, a little scary. And TYPO3 also, it's incredibly convenient. It also lets you search all of the content of the website and find and replace stuff programmatically as well. As long as you use that power for good, it's very helpful. And I think it speaks to the mission. I find TYPO3's very, very well suited to have large websites with a lot of information on them. So I think universities fit into that category. Enterprises, very, very content heavy, structured websites. TYPO3 does really, really well with those. Do you customize the authoring experience in general in the backend at the university?
Yeah, we do that, but I think we should do it more. But the thing is, actually, there are a lot of fields. It's kind of overwhelming for the editors. But I'm kind of, at the moment, I think they're using more than they should, in my opinion. But that's also something we need to discuss first and agree on which fields should be displayed. So I think we should do more in that area.
In general, people's creativity is sparked by limitations. Also, the fewer options that we give to non-technical users, the safer the installation is and the cleaner the data is over time, right? Could you sum up somehow what value TYPO3 delivers to the university?
Website runs on it. That is pretty heavily used. Not all the content is maintained on the website, because we also use StudIP to manage all the courses and the persons.
Is that's a specialized system?
Yeah, that's also open source. Based on PHP, and so that is in there. But we have extensions in TYPO3 which fetch the data from StudIP and also displayed it on the website. So the website is pretty heavily used also to look up contact information or look at the study courses, even though the main work is then for the students is then working with StudIP.
And they do their course planning and that sort of thing through there. And TYPO3's connected to it, integrated with it.
Yeah, and TYPO3 is kind of the gateway to it. I mean, it's kind of like the first contact people have. Interested students, they can look up the courses. Or on the start page, we have interesting news from research projects and things like that. So it's kind of a very good communication and marketing platform.
Nice. So you get the advantages of the content management system, and then you didn't have to build all of the other stuff. You integrated with a system that does that right as well.
Yeah.
That's and that, like I just said, for enterprise architectures for larger systems, that's really, really perfect. Instead of maybe stretching a system to go beyond what it's good at. So you contribute, and thank you for that. What would you like to see next? What would improve TYPO3?
Actually, I think TYPO3, when you go and log into the backend and look at the backend, it's hard to describe, but I think the complete look and feel has gotten really nice. If you compare to older versions, I mean, I like these cards for the system maintenance and upgrade wizards and little icons, and so I think that is a lot of work has been done. A lot of work has been done for accessibility, and so I think they're already on track with that.
Right.
But they're also on track with cleaning up. So I think some areas in the core, there's still a little difficult to use as a developer. So it's really important to clean up the API, and that's of course something you don't really see, and the end users don't really
No, but
appreciate it.
but that affects your job every day, right? Every developer's job.
It's important also for people to use the TYPO3 API and to make changes in the core.
Right.
So I see a lot of work going on. So at the moment, for example, PHP stun is being used to check as a static analyzer to check the code, and when you run that, you can say which level it should use to check. So if you have a low level, then you'll just check some basic things, and if you increase the level, you do more checks. And I think they're currently working on that, and do more strict type checking, for example, which makes in the long term makes the code more stable, because you can find errors easily. And so of course that's more under the hood. And
sure, but that's incredibly important to, developers might want to know, should I choose this PHP project or that PHP project? And if they know that TYPO3 really cares about coding standards, if TYPO3 is very compliant with most of the current PSRs and so on, that's a selling point for the system for sure.
Yeah, and I think that the test suite is just really awesome, because I think it's just, of course, other projects have that, but they're putting in so much work, and they're testing so much. They're testing the coding guidelines, they have functional tests, they have acceptance tests. So every time you create a patch and upload a patch, the test suite runs and detects if there's an error. And you can't merge any patches which don't comply. So
right.
Of course that's not new. That has been going on for several years. But yeah, I just see work is still being done on that, and they're constantly improving it. So
I admire the commitment to quality that that shows.
One thing I don't like that much, it's a feature of TYPO3. But it's also sometimes a disadvantage. You sometimes have several ways to do things, and there, yeah. For example, with the database, with the database persistence, you have the integrated doctrine database abstraction layer, and then you still have XBase, and then you have the data handler. And each has its application, and of course, if you know what to use where and how it works, then it's not a problem. But I think for new users, it's just really confusing.
And the overlap of you could solve this problem there, but you could also solve it there. And with less experience, you might not know what is the more sustainable or the more compatible way to go in the future, right? What is a best practice keeps changing and moving. And I think sometimes you can look at that sort of thing in open source. Hey, go fix it. You can make the solution, and then somebody makes something in their style, and somebody else makes something in another style, or they make it 5 years later, and then we do end up with a multiplicity of solutions, and then somebody at some point has to make hard decisions and clean things up, and that's tough, right? And deciding what to deprecate and what to use moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's really difficult. The plan was to create Neos, to create something new. And then at one point the decision was made. Neos got split off, and TYPO3 has been refactoring, and there are a lot of break and changes. But I think they made the right decisions, because the alternative would have been to keep the old code. And
sure.
I think sometimes it's very painful for extension developers, because there are a lot of break and changes, and they have to change their code. And of course, for the upgrade process, it's not so great. But I think they really made the right decisions.
To be fair, there's a couple of things that I think are fantastic about TYPO3 that need to be said in this context. For one, most TYPO3 sites going back to version 4.5 can still be upgraded to version 10 now. You have to run them through the subsequent upgrades, but there are upgrade paths all the way from 4 to 6 to 7 to 8 to 9 to 10, which shows how solid and consistent that work has been over the years. Yes, if you're an extension maintainer, there's going to be potentially breaking changes every 18 months, but during the main version, main release time, I don't know, every year and a half to keep things up to date, that's not a bad schedule, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I think it's reasonable, and we seem to get a lot from the upgrades as we go. I'm also incredibly impressed that built into the code base, there's all the the extension checker and the thing that says, hey, you're using this and it's deprecated, so the next major version, you better pay attention to that. Like, it's so the usability for developers is really wonderful with helpers like that. And then the thing where you build your own upgrade, where it's like, hey, analyze my thing, take care of this.
Yeah, that is really good. And I mean, like you said, there are deprecations, so they don't go, oh, by the way, we changed this now.
Tomorrow
you have a deprecation, so you can see that in the deprecation log. You can use the extension scanner, and then for the next version, it gets removed. So that's a very good process.
Yeah, it's cool. I want to know who in the TYPO3 community you follow, look for advice or perspective, or you're just interested in what they do.
I was in the documentation team. Had a lot of contact with Daniel Siebmann, so and also got some good tips from him. And he's also a Linux user, because I use Linux. And it's always good to exchange knowledge.
Daniel Siebmann is a wonderful human and incredibly generous with his time.
Yeah, and Jo says he likes to help people, and it's not just words, he really means it. He's also, and he did a lot for the documentation too.
And the second thing that I wanted to capture in this bracket was, if you were going to suggest who I should speak with next on the podcast, who should I call up for this?
Well, you could ask Daniel Siebmann. I also find, I think Alexander Schnitzler is doing a lot of interesting things, because he's the XSpace component merger.
Yep.
So he's doing a lot of work on XSpace, but he's also doing a lot of work for the PHP Stan, for example. I also would be interested what Christian Kuhn is doing, because
lolly.
He's working on the workspaces. So
he's doing full-time contribution right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So I think I have one more topic that I wanted to touch on. We were talking about contribution and your involvement in that, and you made very significant contributions to the TYPO3 guidebook. And it's the first TYPO3 book in English in about 10 years. And I was involved in putting that together, and you gave us a lot of really valuable, interesting information. How did we find you, and what did you think when you found out that some people were doing a book again?
I'm a little surprised, because I think Ellie did a 1-hour interview with me, so I can't really have contributed that much.
Oh no. It's like the whole but there's really, really helpful checklists off the top of my head, like preparing for upgrades and things like that, where you gave us a lot of real help.
I mean, I heard about it at the barcamp in Dresden. I think Olivier was there with Ellie, and they announced it, and then I think later she contacted me, and we did this 1-hour interview where she asked some questions.
Terrific. I think it's really time that people heard about TYPO3 again. And I think that there are wonderful opportunities in the world right now for us to help people and for more people to know about TYPO3 than right now. I think that there's a system that offers, we need more TYPO3 developers. Everyone who has an agency says they need more developers, so there's a career path. It's written in the biggest language on the web, following programming standards. It's fully open source. Like, there's a ton of reasons to check this out. So I'm hoping with things like the mentoring program, things with a book in English, I'm really, really hoping that we can expand the community to a lot more of the world. I'm excited to see where things go in 2021.
Yeah, it sounds good.
Take care of yourself. Take care of yourself. Thank you for all of your contributions. And talk to you again sometime. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye. Thanks to the TYPO3 Association for sponsoring this podcast. Thank you B13 and Stephanie Kreutzer for our logo. Merci beaucoup Patrick Gaumont, TYPO3 developer and musician extraordinaire, for our theme music. Thanks again to today's guest. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe in the podcast app of your choice and share Application, the TYPO3 Community Podcast, with your friends and colleagues. If you didn't like it, please share it with your enemies. Would you like to play along and suggest a guest for the podcast? Do you have questions or comments? Reach out to us on Twitter at TYPO3 Podcast. You can find show notes, links, and more information in our posts on typo3.org. Remember, open source software would not be what it is without you. Thank you all for your contributions.
So we're done?
Yeah. You happy?
Okay.
Everything okay?
Yeah.
Terrific. Okay, thanks.